Hello, everyone. Welcome to this week's episode of FireDEV, a fireside chat with people in the industry. Today, my guest is Sadid Hasan. Sadid, how are you doing today?
Good, thanks. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for coming on to the podcast today. So, Sadid, you work at Microsoft. You're an AI lead. AI is obviously a very hot topic right now, and I'll say for the last 12 months, the interest in the field has just increased immensely. So, do you want to tell us a little bit about what you actually do as an AI lead?
Yeah, sure. So I'm part of the leadership team of Microsoft's AI acceleration and development program. Um, so it's based in Cambridge, Massachusetts. So the main goal of this program is to um, grow AI talent and bring them in from the academia, fresh graduates, and they come into our program and they stay with us for 2 years. And during that time, they work with various product teams to bring in the AI solution to the products to accelerate the user experience using AI and machine learning. And so once they finish working with four different products during this 2 year period, and then they join in one of those product teams. Um, so 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 the main vision of this groundbreaking program is to um, you know grow AI talent, and as well as um, you know make Microsoft as the AI first company. So we transitioning everyone into skilled in AI and machine learning, and how to leverage the best of these advanced technologies into our products and improve user experience. So that's kind of a little bit about the program. And as part of that, as I mentioned, I'm part of the leadership team. So my day-to-day role is kind of bucketed into three uh, different groups, which is like people leadership, project leadership, and partner engagement. So as part of people leadership, I have uh, applied scientists in my team, who I'm supposed to mentor, grow, and as part of the applied science lead into various cross-functional projects that we do across various product teams. So my role is to serve as a subject matter expert and provide guidance and leadership on building those products using AI. And so this that's part of the people leadership, and kind of closely related to project leadership. So I'm the point of contact for office product group um, products, so which is like the M365 copilots that we're building right now, using generative AI and large language models. um, so as I mentioned, I'm at a certain given time, I am leading about four projects with four product teams, and trying to leverage the power of foundational models to improve the product and user experience. And the final part is partner engagement. So it's kind of all three buckets are kind of related, but for partner engagement, we have to work with our partners and product teams throughout the year to find out where exactly we should allocate resources, and work on something big that is a high priority for the business, and also highly impactful for Microsoft.
Okay, so there's a lot there to unpack. First of all, not every person listening will be, as technically savvy as yourself. So you mentioned some terms here: generative AI, large language models, also known as LLMs. If anyone just hears that term, like, do you want to explain in your own words, what that means, in AI?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I can speak at length on this topic because my background is in AI and machine learning. So I've been in this area for about 2 decades. So uh, now I can talk a little bit about like where the generative AI push is coming from. is mainly like you mentioned. So this is a foundational model that the previous before the foundational model paradigm started. If you think about AI and machine learning models that we used to build, all of them were task specific. So for example, if you think about natural language understanding domain, where the idea is how can we teach machines to understand human language. So in that field, um, if you think about certain specific task like name identity recognition or question answering, text summarization, paraphrase generation or text simplification, machine translation, which is a use case of, like, if you want to translate text into a different language. So all these specific tasks, we used to build different models, different machine learning models to solve these tasks. Before, we had to have some annotated set of data set for specific tasks if it is a supervised machine learning problem, and we used to build models that are specific to that task. Now, what happened with this foundational model and large language model, the paradigm shift here is that the idea that can we basically have a large language model that is uh, pre-trained on large amount of text data, and you don't need any labels on that for the pre-training, because essentially it's all text and it's kind of self-supervised learning, and the model is basically trying to predict what would be the next word or phrases in a sentence. So through some masked language modeling type of loss function. I don't want to go too much technical, but think about it. If in a given sentence, if you just mask or hide some words and train a machine to kind of predict what was masked in that word, as a human we can do it, right? So that's where the machine learning comes into play. Like, if machines can do it, and turns out they can do it pretty well, given large amount of text, because you don't need labels. Everything you can, 50% of the data you can just hide the text or words, and then it can try to predict based on the surrounding words and the context. And throughout this process, what happened is, like, we found that these models are very powerful, even when they're pre-trained on large amount of data. So they're powerful even to do any kind of tasks that we used to have, like different set of models for solving those. So that's why we call them foundation, these models as foundation model, basically meaning that it can empower people to do all those different tasks that I mentioned above using the same model in the backend. But just to add to that a little bit, that the pre-trained model is not only the model that is behind all these API. So then the GPT based models, which is generative pre-trained transformer, ChatGPT, or Bing Chat, or Llama, or different models that exist. So it pre-training is only the first step of this model development process. On top of that, we had supervised fine tuning and then reinforcement learning with human feedback. So some sort of human level of feedback and annotated data are used on top of the pre-trained models to further improve the model's performance into solving those tasks, as I mentioned before, into a more effective way. Okay, so it's basically a combination of all those different pieces of the puzzle. It's making it more powerful, so that now people can actually use these models to solve different tasks, at the same time.
Okay, you mentioned that large sets of data, is involved in these models. How large are we talking about? Just so the audience, can get a scale of the sort of the immense amount of data that goes into some of these models.
Yeah, sure. So typically, it's like, if you think about the models that are being trained, and we know about, like, GPT 3.5, GPT 4. So many of those models are trained on trillions of tokens, at least. Okay, so by and they have like billions of parameters. Okay, And token meaning that, in English, the token is, normally, if you think about it intuitively, we can say each word is a token, right? But just to add more technical details to that, is these large language models that we see right now, they are also good not only on English but also different languages. Why? Because they use a different type of tokenization technique in the backend. So in English, we know that each word starts and ends with a space. Like, each word, there is a space after that, or you have some delimiter after the end of the sentence. um, but if you think about the language like Chinese, the space is not the way to tell where exactly a word ends, or sentence ends. So each language, they have their own unique style of, starting and ending of a word, or the gap between the words, or tokenization. So a generic tokenization method is actually used behind many of these foundation models, which is like, sub tokens. So they actually create subsamples. So they divide the words into some unique way, based on the surrounding context and the frequency distribution. So even the words are also subsampled and subsetted in a way that it gives the model to work with a vocabulary of a large amount of tokens, and it could be partial words, or even full words, or root words, or things like that, right? So that's actually is one of the key ingredients of training these models on large language data, because once you have large amount of text, the tokenization happens, and that creates those trillions of tokens like that, and then those are embedded into some vector representation, and through that process, the transformer architecture actually works on top of it, to find the connection between the tokens to predict the next token.
Okay. And you also mentioned before Copilot, and obviously, you just quickly mentioned that. I think a lot of listeners that may know about AI, and especially Microsoft's involvement in it, they will have come across Copilot. What is that, and how does that fit in with Microsoft's plan of being, the AI first company that you think of when you think of AI?
Hmm. Yeah, sure. So the Copilot is a terminology that we use for many of the generative AI products that we are building right now. So it's basically, we are trying to emphasize that these generative AI models are basically AI assistants that can help humans to approach our day-to-day tasks, and in a different way, um, and augmenting the feedback and the interactions with the AI, using those copilots. So basically, if you think about the previous paradigm is like, if you think about recommendation systems that are out there. So if you think about product recommendation system, or if you think about simple search, like if you use Bing to search something, and then you used to get before, a ranked list of results that are being recommended to you, and then you had to go through those series of uh, links to figure out what's important to you based on your query. And even product recommendation systems, like if you think about Netflix or Amazon's recommendation systems, all of them is based on uh, specific algorithms that they learn about the users, and but there is not much the user can do runtime to change the behavior of the algorithm and to get the results. So basically, those you can think of, those are like kind of autopilot, because you are relying on the machine learning algorithm in the back end to give you the results. But with the Copilot terminology, what with the generative AI, large language models, what happens is like you can actually chat with these copilots and the assistants and guide it towards the answer that you need, based on this the amount of power that this large language models actually can show. So that's the distinction between these two paradigm, that using copilots you can be more interactive, and you can have you can get to the bottom of the answer that you're looking for and get the best out of those powerful models.
Okay. And another thing that a lot of people are hearing about right now is ChatGPT. It seems to be like, everywhere. And I feel like a lot of people, when they talk about ChatGPT, they kind of use it as a catch-all phrase, almost just for AI in general. How, you use Google, the term Google just for searching, and there's other terms that you use, and they just essentially mean the whole, sort of market or industry. And I feel like that's what it is with ChatGPT. But like, what is Microsoft's involvement in ChatGPT and OpenAI? Because I feel like there's many people out there that will have heard of ChatGPT, even used it, without knowing that Microsoft has a pretty big involvement in it.
Mhm. Yeah, sure. So it's like based on some partnership that we started several years ago with OpenAI, and can check those news online. So I'm not gonna go into details, but those partnership, enabled us to leverage the models that are built by OpenAI, and we have the collaboration, and they are also using Azure computing infrastructures to build these powerful models. So that actually led us to where we are in terms of this paradigm shift. And I can talk a little bit about the technical side, like I mentioned before, is like the combination. So you need the combination of all those different pieces to make something like this work, right? So you need lots of data, you need powerful computing infrastructure like Azure. You need good model architecture, like the transformers based on multi-headed attention models. And not only that, on top of that, you need approaches like supervised fine tuning, where the human levelers, they can actually level a lot amount of data to show what are the ideal responses given some query. And then on top of that, there's reinforcement learning with human feedback, how to train a reinforcement learning based reward model to automatically predict which responses should be good enough and align closely with the human responses. And then training a policy that can maximize that reward. So basically a combination of all these different pieces are leading to this the paradigm shift of large language models and chat gpt. And one thing that happened with chat gpt is like um, uh, like with all these different pieces, how can we even further improve, right? So then um, you know like I said before, the interaction with the users, and adding on top of that the responsible ai best practices, and in the guard lists, to make sure that these are all used in a best possible way, and not in a harmful way. So all that actually has created that, as you mentioned, the made it as a verb for people to uh, rely more on it and use it more often.
Okay, so there's a lot of talk about what AI is, what ChatGPT is. That it's gonna disrupt this industry. It's gonna destroy this job. All this sort of scare stories that is made by the media. How true would you say are those? And on top of that, what is AI's current state? What can it actually do in reality? Tools like ChatGPT and any of the other tools out now, and what can it just not do that people are getting wrong about it?
Mhm. Yeah. So yeah, like I said, so these and people have been testing these models for a while now, right? And trying to understand and the capabilities that these models can bring, and what are the limitations. And there are lots of research papers that have been published, and since the last few years. um, so there are still lots of open challenges for large language models, right? So I can name a few because of the time limitation today. But so for example, if you think about the context, right? So the user query, when if you are, let's say, using Bing Chat, and if you want to ask it to summarize you some documents, so you have some limits, right? So right now the idea is like you have to the user's query should have a limited set of words, so there is a token limit that you can use to provide the context of what you need. And even any large language models that you can think of, like Llama or ChatGPT, so they also act like that. So you need to specify, so it's constrained on the token size and limit to present the context, which is you know uh, the main reason for this type of limitation is because of the need to process the text in a way that is useful and timely to the user, right? So there is lots of latency and the cost related to the model call and things like that, and the infrastructure support that you need. But at the same time, if the context size is limited, so then there is a chance that you may not get the accurate answer because the model didn't understand what you are trying to ask it to do. So that's where new techniques have been also proposed, like retrieval augmented generation, where you could save your context and lots of documents that are specific to your domain into a vector database. And once the user query comes, you can basically search through that database to extract the most important and most relevant context, and that could be used as the query for your the large language model. So there is, like, people have been identifying limitations like that, and also proposing solutions to mitigate those limitations. The other another open research problem I want to highlight is also the size of the model, right? Because these models, as I mentioned, has billions of parameters, so they are large. So then you need lots of computing infrastructure to host those models. Lots of instances have to be created for hosting those models, and but then um, some researchers, they are now trying that how can you, because that's not scalable, right? Because it's not that more data that you use, you have larger models. Is that the way to go, right? In terms of improving the power of these models, maybe not, right? So researchers have been trying to distill the information and trying to reduce the size of these models, and making models that are small, but again accurate enough, smaller and accurate enough to be performing on par to the large models. So that's also another research domain people are working on, because at the end of the day, we need these models to be useful for every users, right? So then how can you reach all the users? So you really need to kind of have that balancing factor to reduce the model size and maybe land it on user devices.
Okay, so with your background in computer science, you've got a master's in computer science, you've got a PhD in computer science. Let's talk a bit about where some of these, AI tools are being used for, programmers. So, what are some of the, I guess, hot AI tools that you know of, including obviously, the CoPilot, suite of tools as well, that programmers can use, and how can they benefit a coder's life and like enhance it?
Hmm. Yeah, sure. So I mean, you already named a few, so I can name like the GitHub Copilot, right? So that's definitely people, that's the one that came at the beginning of all these paradigm shifts. So the GitHub Copilot, so that's pretty useful for programmers to think more and worry less about the syntax of the programming language, and given any uh, relevant problem, it can come up with the draft code for that. It can help with documentation and things like that. So definitely there, you can use even Bing Chat and Chat GPT and other uh, models also for the same purpose, because those are also trained on a large amount of uh, codes. So like I said, so the main benefit of these tools is to empower the programmers in a way that they can focus more on problem solving rather than explaining things in a more syntactic way to the machines, because that that is where I can say, like, people have also tried that all these models are very good at, because programming languages, they are more structured, right? So it's very easy for these large language models to perform better than natural language, because natural language is more ambiguous, and in any programming language, it's more robust, and you have some concrete structure, and there's no ambiguity on those. Yeah.
Okay. And what made you interested in AI? Because you're saying in that you've been in the space for like 2 decades, and obviously it's something that you're clearly passionate about, and it's understandable if somebody has been around in the last 12 months and sees where AI is going, and really dives into some of these tools. You can see how somebody might get excited, but you clearly went into it before all of this excitement. So what motivated you to get into it?
Yeah, that's a good question, and yeah, to be nostalgic here, but yeah, it's pretty straightforward. So when I got access to computer like decades ago, so I was fascinated by I was playing some games and things like that, and I realized that this would be the future, because um, this is where uh, like the idea of the assistant and assistant to humans, how machines can support humans, so that um, kind of opened up my eyes in thinking that how can we teach these machines to adaptively learn from human, and they're able to think, act, and reason. And when I learned about the field of artificial intelligence, which started in 1950s, so I started reading, and started fascinated to become fascinated about this area, because it is about training machines to learn, think, and act like humans. So, and I realized that the whole world, right? It's built on language and human communications, right? So I thought that how about um, teaching machines human language, and then that led me to the area of natural language understanding. And I started seeing connections, and I started more becoming more self-aware, and started observing human communications and trying to understand human behaviors, because artificial intelligence has a lot of overlap with human psychology, cognitive science, and many of those related fields, where people, they're also trying to understand human brain, how we think, how our neurons are connected, and many of those are also kind of adapted for neural networks and various deep learning algorithms that or various machine learning algorithms that researchers came up with. So I guess the short answer is, like, with all this, I started realizing that um, that the communication between humans and the way we work, the whole and progress our generations, it's gonna be accelerated if we could teach machines and build machines to help humans to do many of those, so that um, the automation can speed up the science and technology, and we can get more impact out of it, right? So if you think about like healthcare industry, there's tremendous impact, lots of data, but there is no way that humans can actually one human can actually understand all those patterns through the data, right? So that's where I was really amazed by the power of machine learning models. And even if you think about like connecting the dots with the large language models, is like these models are basically mimicking um, the interactions and the learnings of you know many humans, right? So billions of humans. And that is making it more powerful, that all those learnings and insights from billions of humans are encoded somehow in the data, and the machine learning models are trying to understand those patterns through the data at scale that a single human actually cannot do it in their entire lifetime, right? So that is making this more powerful and accelerating, and even for industries like healthcare. So when I finished my graduation, I joined healthcare also as my first role, and I thought like, okay, healthcare is the most impactful area, because of its unique challenges and unique data sets, and the unique level of impact. Because as a researcher and developer of these models, I could get also benefited from the adoption of AI into domains or industries like that.
Okay, and with all of you know this data, that's been fed into these models, into these tools, there's a lot of concerns with what it's producing, what it's being used to produce, the legalities of you know what's being output, how the person who's put the input in is going to use this output. What would you say about these concerns, and or what other concerns would you say that we should have going forward with such a disruptive technology like AI, and these generative AI tools and the large language models?
Mhm. Yeah, sure. So yeah, definitely, when models like these are becoming so powerful, and of course the key ingredient is data. And many of these models are trained on open source data sets that are publicly available. um, and it's true, right? So with data, is like the main power of these models are dependent on the quality of the data. And so definitely, if the data is noisy, the models should not perform as good. So that's where the researchers have been also trying to build high quality data sets, and on top of the pre-trained models, as I mentioned, there's like supervised fine tuning and reinforcement learning with human feedback. So human is also in the loop to mitigate some of the limitations of the pre-trained models. So those research is happening, as well as the major challenge is the human alignment, right? So given a query or any task, in the prompt, how do we get the best out of the LLMs, and make sure that the large language models are generating response that are aligned with the task and the ask that the user put in the query. So this is part of that, and sometimes this is also related to the responsible AI best practices. And as I mentioned before, like there is a way that, like if these type of models are used in a way that is not appropriate, so we have guardrails in place, and there is also governance coming from different governing bodies, like conferences that I'm part of. Then governments, they're also setting the responsible AI best practices and the guidelines for developing AI models, and how to use data sets and things like that. So all those are evolving, right? So I would say, like, this is the place where all of us, the researchers, it cannot be something that people are or researchers have or will work on in an isolation. So this is where the collaboration, right, the true collaboration would happen, where all different organizations like academia, industry, government, all would come into this picture. And we all try to, as we try to understand the power of these models, so as we build these models, and then new regulatory practices and best practices are in place, um, then that's where we can evolve this into making this technology more powerful for for the best of of humankind, and making it better every day.
Okay. And with all these tools, there's a lot of information to basically take in. There's a lot of stuff to learn. Like with AI, it's progressing so quickly that it can be hard to keep up, even when you're interested, like myself. And I'm a programmer. I'm within the technical field, and even I feel like it's progressing so fast that it can get overwhelming for the person who's not as technically savvy, or not as advanced in their career. What resources would you recommend to keep up with the advancements, and also learn about AI tools and how they work and how to use them? Because I feel like the people that of the next 2 to 5 years understand and start to leverage these tools is going to be such an advantage by them, because they'll just know how to use it, and it'll get to a point where everyone needs to know. It's like how, in the 90s and the early 2000s, using a computer and using stuff like word processing wasn't that much of a requirement, and people just kind of overlooked it. Whereas it didn't take long, for like 5 to 10 years later, that it became a requirement for everyone, to know how to use a computer to a certain degree, to know how to use certain office applications, whether that's Microsoft or other applications. And people that were just in the technical field, that had an interest, became accustomed to these technologies. They just were such an advantage, whereas the people that may have needed those tools, like, let's say admin work, they were at a disadvantage because they never, learned them, and they struggled. So, like, what resources would you recommend for people?
Yeah, sure. I like what you said. Like, because I mean, the need is the important, right? So when you said, because people are trying to use these tools to, based on their needs. So I think that's the keyword, okay, that I should emphasize more, to answer your question. Because obviously there are lots of progress happening in AI, right? So if people are new into the field, they might be feeling lost into catching up. So there is lots of progress in terms of research algorithms and which tools to, almost every day there is lots of tools that are coming up, right, in GitHub and open sourced. um, so my perspective on this, like I said, is focus on the problem, right? So what do you want to do? Because we might, so think about, just to give you an analogy, right? If you go to, a superstore and you see lots of tools, right? Um, that you could use to let's say, fix your car, or you need to build some furniture in your garage. um, so that's when you go to the superstore, and try to find out which tools you need to fix your garage or your car or something else, right? But you don't go to the superstore just to browse the tools, and you don't have any need for those tools, right? So that's what I would suggest. The same thing here is like, and it's true that when you are learning something in the academia, right, you might be just trying to understand some new field, and you do formal courses. But my opinion is, everything, try to fit it with the problem. So come up with a problem that you want to solve, and then if you start with the problem, then you try to figure out, okay, how do I solve this problem, which tool is the most appropriate for this problem to solve, and look for the tools. And there, and that's where you can use also copilots like Bing Chat and others, right? So to even, they can suggest you those tools right away. And you do some research and figure out, like, okay, to solve this problem, this is what's the best right now. And there are, lots of opportunity to research through that. And once you know, okay, these are the things that people have tried to solve the same problem, then you go into one of those tools, and maybe in GitHub code base, and try to replicate that solution to solve your own problem, right? So that's how you can actually learn and grow, and you now increase your problem set and problem space. You can, and again, these problems you can choose based on your interest, right? Somebody might be interested in, like myself, like I was interested in natural language understanding, like text paraphrasing was my favorite task that I tried to solve for many years. Is like, how do you, speak about the same thing but in a different words or different phrases, but still the meaning is same? And how do you simplify the text for healthcare, right? Because in the clinical domain, everything is in everything is in clinical jargon, so people don't understand those clinical terminologies. So I worked on that problem, right? How do you simplify the text in a way that layperson can understand what the doctors are saying, right? So once you have identified the problem, it becomes easy to explore the existing tools, and then even invent new tools and new algorithms on top of it to make the best out of it. And then you can switch your problem domain, you can identify more problems, and with more problems and tasks, you can find new tools, and that's how you can increase the portfolio of your, which tools you are learning and growing. And that's where I'd like to also suggest, based on your question, like, because there's too many tools and too many different areas and problems. So it's really up to the person who is looking, right? What interests them the most, right? So I would suggest to be expert on at least one area, if not more, right? So go deeper as much as you want, based on, of course, your interest, because that is also dependent on, like, how many experts also are available in that area. So and if and the uniqueness and novelty of the problem that you're considering, if you're considering doing PhD or masters and things like that. um, so that's one way to think about it, like be an expert in an area and go deep as much as possible, so you become the expert in that domain. But at the same time, if you have general understanding of other domains where you don't need to go that deeper, but you know how to solve some of those problems based on some of the tools that are the best practice in that area. So that way you can have a familiarity of the breadth of topics and tools, and you go deeper into one of them to be an expert.
Okay. And right now, what's your favorite AI tool? You know that you like to use, and what's coming up that you're really excited for as well. Because being within the AI field, I'm sure you've used virtually all of the tools out there. More in depth than the average person will ever, and you've probably broken them apart, and you understand how they work as well. So what's your favorite, and what are you excited about?
Yeah, I have a lot, so I don't know which one should I highlight, but because I since I work in Microsoft, I have access to most advanced technology and the tools that even the ones that we are building, we get to access them and evaluate and try to get opportunity to improve them first before it's become generally available. But I highlight some of the things that are available and public, like, as I mentioned several times, like I like Bing Chat a lot. I use it, almost every day to learn about new things, to help me digest or summarize my thinking, my documents. um, and one other product I can highlight is the one of the products that we are building right now. We call it Loop, Microsoft Loop. I don't know if you're familiar with that. So we're building Loop, a new product, a new collaborative experience where the idea is like people can collaborate on the same Loop page, or within the Loop workspace, where different kinds of files can exist together, like files like Words, PowerPoint, Excel, or any kind of files. So it's your own workspace, and you can collaborate with people with that. And not only that, you could even send a Loop component through your email, and So for example, just to give you an analogy, if you send someone an email right now, right, that email is kind of fixed, right? So then if you make a mistake in that email, you have to resend that email again, right, and saying, okay, please ignore my previous email. But with Loop, what we are doing is like, even you can like send an email using a Loop component, and even you can continue making edits on that Loop component after you even the send that email. Okay, and other collaborators can also work on that same Loop component within that email. Okay, so you can see if something is changed and you want to make any changes. So basically what we are trying to do is making collaboration more seamless and constraint free. For that we are working on building a Loop copilot right now. So that is also empowering users to digest everything within the Loop workspace. So that's coming. And it was also announced a few months back. Yeah, so those are some of the things. And of course, there are lots of tools that we use day to day in the backend to develop many of these products. Like we use Azure AI services, OpenAI services, Azure machine learning to develop many of these machine learning products. um, and yeah, like so I guess the short answer is many of these tools that we use right now is based on generative AI, and we're also working on building many of them.
So Microsoft, Loop, you use the example of, emails, and yeah, I've I've been literally just today. I sent an email, forgot to send the attachment, and then
Hmm.
I went back, sent the email again. I was just like, forgot the attachment, and that can be annoying. And I know email clients have put in just the thing where you can undo it so it doesn't, send it for a few seconds effectively, just kind of puts it in a
Hmm.
queue, and then you can undo it. But again, that's if you catch it within those few seconds, including, obviously if you refresh the page, go off the page, go back on it, or 30 seconds later you realize, a minute, whatever, then it doesn't really work. So you're saying with this, it's a system where you can edit it. So how does that look, what does that look like for the end user? Is it the same way if, let's say, I post something on Facebook, I put a post on there, or LinkedIn, I can, click the, the menu and click edit, and I can edit the original post? Is that what happens, or is it something else? And is there a history of what it used to look like as well?
Hmm. Yeah, so it's kind of similar, but it's different. Like it's real time, right? So that's the idea. Like we're enhancing the collaboration, making it more seamless. So it's like, as I mentioned, like Loop is a collaborative product. So the idea is like, if you are editing something, your collaborators are also able to see what you're working on. Okay, so right now I think in any other product you can't do that. So for example, if you are editing something in any posts, so it's basically still kind of static to your part, and unless you press send or submit or something like that. But yeah, with Loop we are trying to make it more seamless so that the collaboration is smooth, so everyone can, so it's like you don't even have to meet with people to discuss something, because people might be working on the same document in different parts or even on the same part, and then they can see the changes in real time.
So is Microsoft Loop something that consumers can get hold of right now, or is it just an announced product but not available to the general public?
Yeah, so I think, yeah, there are some features that we are building. So but yeah, so this has been announced, and I think parts and pieces of the, like, we are working on part of the Loop copilot. So yeah, so it's coming gradually. Okay, that's the short answer. So many of those, I think you should be able to use as of now, but many others, like, we are improving and it's evolving. Yeah.
Okay, so what's Microsoft's approach to, AI AI's involvement in the different products, the different teams, because Microsoft is so big now, one of the biggest companies in the world. It has loads of different products across all different verticals. So is it a matter of there's like a single or just like an AI department, an AI team that's doing this research, creating this thing, and then other teams can leverage the tools and put them in their own, existing, products, like the Office Suite, like Xbox, Windows, that sort of stuff? Or is it a matter of Microsoft is putting AI, specialists within each team, within each, product to say, okay, this is part of it, like, how you all have programs, you'll have designers, you'll have PMs. How is Microsoft's approach to it?
Yeah, we have a it's a collaboration of different roles and different people across the company. So and like I said, so those so this, like, each product they have the product managers, program managers, software engineers, applied scientists, um, then responsible AI leads, right? So many of those roles actually we work together to build. And even the journey starts from the user needs and understanding the user study, user scenarios, what product they're using right now, what features they're using, and things like that, what needs they have, where can we improve the user experience, and through starting from there up to developing the product, doing rigorous testing and evaluation, following the responsible AI best practices. And within the generative AI domain, now we have, like, more additional checks on guard lists and things like that to prevent any harmful uh, activities that may happen on the product. So making sure everything is appropriate and running perfectly. um, so yeah, so that's the full AI development life cycle, and it goes through a rigorous process of evaluation, like I said. So it's dependent on the product teams, the partner teams. So basically we work with various product teams. So we are part of the office of the CTO, so the center of excellence of the AI and technology. So we work with various teams to make sure these products are appropriate, and well tested, and then they are part of the production and features, and that also goes into phases and different ways, um, and through different customer bases. Yeah.
Sounds really, really cool. So, Sadid, I understand we are, strapped for time today. It is going to be, a shorter podcast than usual for the audience. But before we wrap up, I would like to ask one more question, and that is, what advice would you give to somebody, in general, that's, about to graduate at university, or that's at the start of their career and is looking to get into the technical field, especially with AI and all of these other exciting tools? What advice would you give, that you've learned, along your journey?
Yeah, sure. That's a very good question, and I would kind of echo what I have mentioned a little bit alluded earlier. So um, focus on creating impact, right? So and think big. So that's gonna be my advice. That because sometimes we get short-sighted, right? So we have our short-term goals that, okay, maybe we just graduated, and I just want to find a job, and I don't know, just gonna live my life through that job. And but I would encourage all of us who are listening to this podcast is so to think big, right? So to think about not only about ourselves but also about others, the humanity, the next generation, because the time in this world is very limited, right? So then how can we make the best use of our time in this world? So that should be our highest priority, no matter what we do in any places where we are right now. So and all of us, right? So sometimes we may feel like we are in social media, we may feel that, okay, somebody has a great career and I'm not even um, able to get there. So we try to compare ourselves with others and get lost in that process. So I'd encourage us to compare with ourselves, right? So with each of us, we compare and with ourselves, not others, because each one of us are different. They have their own background and way of growing up, and different scenarios and context of going where they are. But if you try to compare with yourself, so try to do something that can get you to a better shape, in a better position, in learning something new every day based on what you have learned yesterday, right? So if you create that benchmark and do iteratively learning new things, and based on your interest, and try to grow based on that, and keeping the big picture in your mind, that you want to make an impact not only for you or your family, but also globally. So that can actually set the course, that okay, you can pick up a problem area or domain, and you can try to solve the open problems in that area using some of the tools in that area, that if you don't know, you can keep learning about those. So that is how I would suggest you can plan and set up a strategy for your career. And you also can give back to the community, um, because everyone has some strengths and some areas of growth, right? So that would be my final advice, that if you know something, if you learn something, share it with others, because there is someone who doesn't know even that what you know. So if you continue that process and pay it forward, then you will see the learning cycle is happening, and you are getting lots of opportunities of learning and growing into your field of your choice, and making a great impact into the society and to the world.
Thank you, Sadid. I think that's some really great advice for people, and hopefully the listeners got a lot out of this episode. I definitely know I did. I thought I knew a lot about AI, and I learned a lot from Sadid. Obviously, he's an expert. He's been in the industry for 2 decades, and so Sadid, I want to thank you for taking the time to come onto the podcast. Hopefully, we can get you on again a little bit longer, talk more about AI and just the overall tech industry. So thank you, Sadid.
Yeah, thank you, Farhan. Yeah, really appreciate it. It's been a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
No problem. So thank you everyone for tuning in for this week's episode of FireDEV. I'll see you next week. Bye bye.